Van Gogh, Early Struggles. Van Gogh. The name conjures images of swirling stars, vibrant sunflowers, and a tormented soul. But before he became the legendary artist, Vincent van Gogh was simply a man, a restless, deeply sensitive soul adrift in a world that didn't quite understand him. He wasn't born with a paintbrush in his hand. His journey to art was a winding, often heartbreaking path, paved with rejection and profound spiritual searching. Born in 1853 in Groot Zundert, Netherlands, Vincent was the eldest of 6 children to a stern Protestant pastor and a gentle but often overwhelmed mother. His childhood was marked by a certain solemnity, a quiet intensity that set him apart. He was thoughtful, prone to introspection, and perhaps too earnest for the pragmatic world around him. His family, though respectable, was not wealthy, and the expectation was that Vincent would find a stable profession. But stability seemed an alien concept to his fervent spirit. His first significant foray into the world was as an art dealer at Goupil & C, a prestigious firm where his uncle worked. For a few years, he was relatively successful, exposed to the art world, learning about aesthetics and composition. But Vincent wasn't content merely selling art. He wanted to connect with it, to connect with the raw emotion behind each stroke. His empathy, a trait that would later define his art, became a hindrance here. He couldn't reconcile the commercialization of beauty with his burgeoning spiritual ideals. He found himself preaching to customers about the deeper meaning of art, a practice not conducive to sales. Eventually, he was dismissed. This failure was the first of many, each one chipping away at his self-worth, but simultaneously strengthening his resolve to find a true calling. He tried teaching, then working in a bookstore, but each attempt ended similarly, with Vincent finding the confines of conventional life stifling, and the world finding his intensity unsettling. He was too passionate, too honest, too. It was during this period of existential wandering that Vincent's spiritual fervor intensified. He felt a profound calling to serve God, to dedicate his life to the poor and suffering. He embarked on theological studies, hoping to become a pastor like his father. But his unconventional approach, his refusal to conform to the rigid doctrines of the church, led to yet another rejection. He was deemed unsuitable, too zealous, too radical. Undeterred, Vincent became a missionary in the Borinage, a poverty-stricken mining region in Belgium. Here, amidst the squalor and hardship, he found a profound connection with the suffering. He lived like the miners, sharing their meager meals, tending to the sick, and immersing himself completely in their lives. He felt their pain, their exhaustion, their despair. He drew them, not with artistic ambition, but with a desperate need to capture their raw humanity. This period, though marked by extreme deprivation and further institutional disapproval, his superiors found his literal interpretation of Christian poverty unsettling, was a crucible for his artistic soul. It was here, witnessing the stark realities of human existence, that he began to see the world through a different lens, a lens that sought truth and emotion above all else. His brother, Theo, a constant source of emotional and financial support, recognized Vincent's artistic inclination long before Vincent himself did. Theo, working as an art dealer, encouraged Vincent to pursue drawing seriously. It was a revelation. Suddenly, all those years of restless searching, of trying to fit into molds that didn't suit him, coalesced into a singular, undeniable purpose. Art wasn't just a profession, it was a vocation, a spiritual calling that allowed him to express the profound empathy and intense observations he had accumulated. Vincent, at the age of 27, finally embraced his destiny. He was largely self-taught, learning from art manuals, copying masterworks, and relentlessly sketching everything around him. His early drawings and paintings, often somber and earthy, reflect his time in the Borinage and his Dutch roots. Works like The Potato Eaters are a stark, powerful testament to this phase. They depict the harsh realities of peasant life with an unvarnished honesty, a deep respect for the dignity of labor, and a profound sense of human connection. The colors are muted, the forms heavy, reflecting the somber mood and the difficult lives of his subjects. This period was not without its challenges. His family, initially skeptical, grew increasingly concerned about his chosen path, seeing it as another failure, another sign of his inability to conform. Financial struggles were constant, alleviated only by Theo's unwavering generosity. Vincent often lived in poverty, enduring loneliness and the harsh judgment of others. Yet his conviction grew stronger. He believed that through art he could communicate the universal human experience, the beauty and suffering he saw everywhere. He moved to The Hague, then Nieuwenem, immersing himself in the rural life, constantly sketching and painting. He studied anatomy, perspective, and color theory with an almost obsessive dedication. His technique was raw, unrefined by academic standards, but it pulsed with an undeniable energy. He wasn't interested in pretty pictures. He wanted to capture the soul of his subjects, whether it was a gnarled tree, a worn-out pair of shoes, or the weary face of a peasant. The rejections, the failures, the spiritual turmoil, all these seemingly negative experiences were in fact laying the groundwork for the revolutionary artist he would become. They instilled in him a unique perspective, a profound empathy for the marginalized, and an unshakable belief in the power of art to convey deep emotion. He learned to look beyond the surface, to see the inner life, the struggles, the quiet dignity that most people overlooked. This early period, often overshadowed by his later more famous works, was crucial. It forged the man who would later explode onto the art scene with a riot of color and emotion. It taught him resilience in the face of adversity, and it solidified his unwavering commitment to his art, not as a means to fame or fortune, but as a vital expression of his very being. He was a man driven by an internal fire, constantly searching for meaning, and eventually finding it in the language of paint. His early struggles, far from breaking him, refined him, preparing him for the intense, brilliant, and ultimately tragic artistic explosion that was yet to come. His empathy, honed by years of failure and connection with the downtrodden, would become the very core of his revolutionary vision. He saw the world with an intensity few others possessed, and he was determined to translate that vision onto canvas, no matter the cost. Block 2. Artistic Explosion, Mental Health. From the somber hues of the Dutch countryside, Vincent's journey took a dramatic turn, leading him to the vibrant art scene of Paris in 1886. Here, under the guidance of Theo, he was exposed to the dazzling innovations of Impressionism and the nascent stirrings of Post-Impressionism. The muted palette of his early work gave way to a riot of color. He experimented with pointillism, learned about complementary colors, and absorbed the energy of artists like Pissarro and Seurat. Paris was a crucible, refining his technique and opening his eyes to a new way of seeing light and color. But the city's frenetic pace, coupled with his inherent social anxieties and fragile mental state, proved overwhelming. He yearned for a place where he could truly paint, where the sun was brighter and the air was clearer. That place was Arles, in the south of France, where Vincent arrived in February 1888. It was here that his art and his life reached an extraordinary, explosive peak. The intense Provençal light, the vibrant landscapes, the golden sunflowers, all ignited something profound within him. He envisioned Arles as the studio of the South, a utopian artists' colony, a place where like-minded painters could live and work together, sharing ideas and inspiring one another. He rented the famous Yellow House, painting it with a fervent hope for this communal dream.
His time in Arles was a period of astonishing productivity and artistic breakthrough. In just 15 months, he produced over 200 paintings and more than 100 drawings, many of them now among the most iconic works in art history. The somber palette of his Dutch period was utterly abandoned, replaced by a dazzling symphony of yellows, blues, and greens. His brushstrokes became bolder, more expressive, imbued with an almost frantic energy. He painted the bustling café terraces under starry skies, the serene beauty of the Rhone, and the iconic, sun-drenched fields of sunflowers. These weren't mere depictions, they were intensely personal interpretations infused with his own emotional landscape. He didn't just paint what he saw, he painted what he. Yet, this period of unparalleled creativity was tragically intertwined with a precipitous decline in his mental health. The same intensity that fueled his artistic genius also amplified his internal turmoil. Vincent had always been prone to bouts of depression and anxiety, but in Arles, these episodes became more frequent and severe. He suffered from hallucinations, delusions, and terrifying fits, often marked by amnesia and extreme agitation. Modern scholars speculate he may have suffered from bipolar disorder, epilepsy, or a combination of conditions, perhaps exacerbated by malnutrition, overwork, and absinthe consumption. The arrival of Paul Gauguin in October 1888, the first and only artist to join Vincent in his Yellow House dream, initially brought immense joy and artistic stimulation. The two artists worked together, debated art theory, and pushed each other creatively. But their personalities clashed dramatically. Gauguin, sophisticated and dominant, found Vincent's intensity and erratic behavior increasingly difficult to bear. Vincent, desperate for companionship and validation, clung to Gauguin with an almost suffocating need. The tension between them escalated, culminating in the infamous incident on December 23, 1888. Following a heated argument, Gauguin threatened to leave. In a fit of despair and rage, Vincent, wielding a razor, confronted Gauguin. Gauguin fled, and Vincent, in a moment of profound self-mutilation, severed a part of his own left ear. He then wrapped the severed portion in paper and presented it to a bewildered prostitute named Rachel before collapsing at home. This event marked a turning point. The dream of the Studio of the South was shattered, and Vincent's mental health spiraled further. He was hospitalized in Arles, experiencing periods of lucidity interspersed with severe attacks. The townspeople, once curious, now viewed him with fear and suspicion, eventually signing a petition for his confinement. Despite these immense struggles, his artistic output did not cease. In fact, it seemed to intensify. His paintings from this period are raw, visceral expressions of his inner world. The swirling impasto brushstrokes, the bold, often clashing colors, the agitated forms, all reflect the chaos and beauty he perceived, both internally and externally. In The Night Café, the clashing reds and greens create a suffocating, oppressive atmosphere, mirroring his own psychological distress. Conversely, works like Bedroom in Arles offer a glimpse of his yearning for peace and order amidst the turmoil. The conventional view often separates the artist from their illness, but with Van Gogh, the two are inextricably linked. His madness wasn't just an affliction, it was, in a profound and tragic way, integral to his vision. It allowed him to see beyond the ordinary, to infuse everyday objects and landscapes with an almost spiritual energy. His suffering deepened his empathy, sharpened his perception, and compelled him to paint with an urgency that transcends mere representation. His time in Arles, though ending in personal catastrophe, was a period of unprecedented artistic innovation. He had found his voice, a unique visual language that spoke directly from the soul. He had transformed the quiet observations of his early years into a vibrant, emotional symphony of color and form. The world may have seen a man teetering on the brink, but Vincent saw a universe ablaze with feeling, and he captured every fiery, swirling, heartbreaking moment of it on canvas. He poured his entire being, his joy, his pain, his hopes, and his fears into every single brushstroke, creating a body of work that would forever redefine the boundaries of art.
Block 3. Van Gogh Legacy Impact. The self-mutilation incident in Arles and the subsequent hospitalizations marked the end of Vincent's dream of an artist's colony. In May 1889, recognizing the severity of his condition and seeking a more stable environment, he voluntarily admitted himself to the asylum of Saint Paul de Mausole in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. Paradoxically, this period of confinement, intended to stabilize him, became another intensely fertile phase for his art. Deprived of the freedom to roam as he pleased, Vincent turned his gaze inward and to the immediate surroundings of the asylum grounds. Despite frequent and debilitating attacks that left him unable to paint for weeks, he produced some of his most iconic and emotionally charged works during his year in Saint-Rémy. The cypress trees, the olive groves, the wheat fields, and the swirling skies seen from his window became his new muses. The Starry Night, painted in June 1889, is arguably his most famous masterpiece, a breathtaking vision of the night sky, its swirling cosmic energy reflecting the tumultuous landscape of his own mind. It's a painting that speaks of both profound peace and intense agitation, a window into a soul grappling with the universe. He also painted the vibrant irises, a garden of mental solace, and numerous self-portraits that unflinchingly reveal his internal suffering. His brushstrokes grew even more agitated, often taking on a sculptural quality, the paint applied thickly, almost carved onto the canvas. Each stroke seems to pulse with his desperate need to express, to connect, to make sense of his fragmented reality. The asylum provided a strange sanctuary, a place where he could channel his inner chaos into ordered, albeit intensely emotional compositions. In May 1890, feeling a renewed sense of hope and seeking to be closer to Theo, Vincent left Saint-Rémy and moved to Auvers-sur-Oise, a village north of Paris. Here, he was placed under the care of Dr. Paul Gachet, a homeopathic physician and art enthusiast who had treated other artists. For a brief period, Vincent seemed to flourish, enjoying the company of Dr. Gachet and his family and painting with renewed vigor. His palette brightened and his compositions became more expansive, reflecting the open fields and charming village scenes. He painted Portrait of Dr. Gachet, a poignant depiction of a melancholic man, and the powerful Wheat Field with Crows, a haunting and prophetic work often interpreted as a premonition of his impending end. But his mental health remained fragile. The financial pressures on Theo, who was also struggling with his own health and family, weighed heavily on Vincent. The old anxieties returned, intensified by a deep sense of being a burden. On July 27, 1890, Vincent van Gogh walked into a wheat field and shot himself in the chest. He lingered for 2 days, dying in Theo's arms on July 29, 1890, at the age of 37. Theo, heartbroken, would follow him to the grave just 6 months later. During his lifetime, Vincent van Gogh sold only one painting, The Red Vineyard, and was largely considered a failure, a madman. His art was often ridiculed, his genius unrecognized by his contemporaries. It was only after his death, largely due to the tireless efforts of Theo's widow, Johanna van Gogh-Bonger, who preserved his letters and paintings, that the world slowly began to grasp the magnitude of his talent. The postmodern recognition of Van Gogh's work was nothing short of a revolution. His vivid colors, his expressive brushstrokes, and his raw emotional honesty resonated deeply with subsequent generations of artists and the public alike. He became a towering figure for the Expressionist movement, influencing countless artists who sought to convey inner emotion rather than objective reality.
His work challenged the very definition of art, proving that beauty could be found not just in idealized forms, but in the intense, subjective experience of life itself. Today, his paintings fetch astronomical prices and hang in the most prestigious museums worldwide. But his legacy extends far beyond monetary value or artistic movements. Van Gogh's story has become a powerful testament to the human spirit's ability to create profound beauty amidst immense suffering. His madness, once seen as a tragic flaw, is now understood as an intrinsic part of his unique vision, allowing him to perceive and translate the world with an intensity few others could match. He taught us that art can be a window into the soul, a direct line to the artist's deepest feelings. He showed us that even in the darkest moments, there is light, there is color, there is hope, and there is an unyielding urge to express. His letters to Theo, filled with his philosophies on art and life, offer unparalleled insight into his creative process and his struggles. Van Gogh's art continues to move, inspire, and challenge us. It reminds us of the fragility of the human mind, the resilience of the creative spirit, and the enduring power of passion. He didn't just paint landscapes or portraits, he painted the very essence of human experience, transforming his personal torment into universal beauty. His life was a storm of struggle, but his canvas became a beacon of light, forever changing how we see art and indeed how we understand the complex, beautiful, and often painful journey of being human.